So just to talk through it here right quick, if somebody didn't see my previous video, I have a Miller 12RC suitcase that I want to be able to run off of my Hobart Ironman 240. The issue with that is that the 12RC suitcase needs to have this cable here plugged into a 14 pin like is on the front of like a Big Blue welder or a Trailblazer or XMT, something like that. So this is the Miller 14 pin, but obviously the Hobart does not have one of those on the front of it. And so I'm fucking around with how I can make something happen here. And I've ordered parts and what have you that I want to put like a 14 pin plug on the front of the welder here. But just to fuck around with things for the moment, so the suitcase needs 24 volts AC for it to run. And it's totally different than the VS or the ArcReach suitcases. So what I did for the moment, and yeah, I know it's janky and custom and sketchy looking and all that kind of shit, but I'm just trying to test the theory for the moment. I have power 120 volt AC from an extension cord coming in to a little 120 to 24 volt AC transformer, and then I have a little fuse block on here that I'm going to obviously put a fuse on it, but for the moment I have it hooked up to my Fluke voltmeter to see what size of fuse that I need to put in it. But if we flip the switch on the suitcase, it does actually power up, which is pretty slick. And then if I hit the jog, drive rolls turn, and I guess we'll change. I hear kind of a bad noise. Okay, maybe it's just weird. I don't know what that is. But so power's up and what have you, and if I hit the purge button, I got gas plumbed to it. So in theory, all I need to do now is hook up the suitcase to where it'll trigger the Hobart to energize the weld lugs, because I don't need the gas solenoid or the drive rolls in the Hobart, because I have gas solenoid and drive rolls in the suitcase, and now of course obviously I have base power to the suitcase. So now the only thing that I need to feed to the suitcase is weld current, and so I got to figure out how to off of the suitcase's MIG gun to trigger the Hobart to energize the weld current. And I don't know, I just figured I'd video this one step at a time as I go through here. Okay, so I pulled the panels off of the Hobart because I was hoping that something in here was going to be that there was going to be like a 24 volt AC transformer in here, and I couldn't find one anyways. And I guess kind of more importantly than that anyways is that the factory MIG gun connection is actually like 35 or so volts DC, where on the suitcase it is 24 volts AC. And so I didn't like want to have interference issues and shit there. But I guess now that I think about it, what was this guy here? Wasn't this AC? No, see, that says DC too. Yeah, DC. So apparently this thing here is all DC, near as I can tell. course, if somebody else, knows more and what have you, then by all means, please let me know. Because it would be really sweet if I could just pull 24 volt AC power from inside of the Hobart here and feed it to the suitcase instead of needing that extra transformer and what have you. But that having been said, I did get this fabric cobbled to where it'll work. So I guess just to go over it again, I got the 24 volt AC transformer feeding base power to the suitcase welder, which that transformer is what powers up the display and what have you on the suitcase. The way that the 14 pin, say like to the Trailblazer, would activate the not the contacts, but like turn on the weld output on the Trailblazer, is it connects pin A and B, and A is one of the 24 volt AC pins, and B, holy crap, and B, near as I can tell, is just like a contact signal, if you will, and so yeah, the suitcase is running off alternating current, where the welder is running off of, or the MIG welder is running off of DC, and so I don't want those two to interfere. So what I'm going to end up doing is running a 24 volt AC relay. I don't have one of those right now. This is actually a 12 volt DC relay, and so when I hook this up, which is what these two wires are here, when I hook this up to the suitcase, it buzzes and makes bad sounds, and I'm sure it's not very good for it. But when the MIG gun of the suitcase is released, pins A and B on the 14 are essentially open circuit to each other. It's like 1.2 million ohms, but there's 24 volts AC. When you pull the trigger on the suitcase, it like bonds A and B together, and you have you have a closed circuit, and the voltage goes away. On the MIG welder, these two, yeah, my camera's doing funky shit. These two are what energize the welder, and so when I touch those two together here, you can see it moves the drive roll. You don't hear the gas solenoid clicking because I disconnected it. So those two, in a minute here, I'll have these hooked up to the normally closed contacts on the relay. But then when I hook this guy up here, then those contacts open up, and then I can connect that guy there like so. That is hooked up to the front of the machine here. These go to the normally closed contacts on the relay, which currently are open because we are energizing that relay. And so I should have everything set up. This is the MIG gun that is connected into the suitcase. That one there goes to the Hobart. And so I have the ground running off of the suitcase to the table, and then I have, just with a Lenco connector, the power wire for the suitcase coupled into there. And so when I pull the trigger on this, whoop, I got it set to trigger hold. Had it set to trigger hold, which I actually really freaking like. I wish the Hobart had that. But so when I pull the trigger on the suitcase MIG gun, hopefully you can hear it. We're getting gas flow, and we're of course feeding wire. And then when I pull the trigger, it de-energizes that relay, so it closes the normally closed circuit on the relay, because right now the normally closed is open because the relay is energized. And so if I hold it here and pull the trigger, it welds just fine. And that's welding looking through my phone, and I don't care about what the weld looks like. I just want to see if the damn thing is going to work here. But yeah, so that's pretty bitchin'. I'm using the MIG welder as a power source. Using the MIG welder as the DC power source of the welding current for the suitcase, and then powering base power for the circuitry and the drive rolls and what have you from the suitcase, off of that tiny little transformer. And so, like I said, this is just to test the theory and, see how it works and what have you, and figure out what I got to do to make this work. Is there a cleaner, and okay, yeah, this is a spider web of sketchy shit, but I guess my question is there a better way that I could do this rather than running the normally closed circuit on a relay in the machine? But at the same time, that kind of seems to be the easiest way that I can come up with any ways to do this. Because I'll have to put a couple switches in the Hobart welder, because I would like to have a switch where I can, turn off the Hobart drive rolls, and also to where I could turn off the gas valve, because I don't need the gas valve for anything. Right now I was just doing it by unplugging it. But I obviously don't need the gas valve in the Hobart for anything, because the suitcase has its own. But yeah, really the only thing that I'll need to add to the Hobart to make this work is going to be a 14-pin connector, 24-volt transformer, a 24-volt AC relay, and a little bit of wiring. And then I'll be able to do this essentially just plug and play. And, you could obviously ask the question and fair point of why do this? And for one, I just like the trigger hold function on the suitcase, but also the Hobart welder is effectively stationary. Yes, it's on wheels and you can roll it around, but if you need to weld in the bed of a dump truck or something like that, or wanted to weld on the roof of your house or something or whatever, okay, yeah, you can stick weld it and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. But if you wanted to wire weld it, there's not an easy way to do that with this. Yes, you could move this whole welder to wherever you're going and run an extension cord. But, the whole point to these suitcases is that you can just pick them up and carry them wherever you want to go, and then run leads for the weld current and the gas, and in my case, a 14-pin. And case in point, I've got to weld inside of a water truck. And yes, you could stick weld it, yada, 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 all the rest of it, but I'd like to be able to wire weld it. And yes, I could run off my Trailblazer, but then you have to listen to the Trailblazer running, and you're burning fuel and what have you, which obviously fuel isn't free, putting wear and tear on the Trailblazer. Where with this setup here, I can just run the suitcase off of the Hobart and then run my leads to the suitcase to wherever the hell I want to go. And then, in theory, anyways, I could also use this to run a Miller 30A spool gun off of the Hobart, because those go through the 14 pin as well too. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, kind of just rambling on and shit, but I wanted to kind of note this stuff for myself, anyways, so that I can order parts to be able to do this more cleanly and, you know, a more clean and tidy and proper way of hooking this all up. But in theory, I should be able to have I should be able to have like, and I'm thinking I'll probably put a couple switches back in here because there's a nice big open cavity right there on the inside of the Hobart. But I should be able to set this up where all I need to do is plug in the 14 pin, plug in the, you know, welding current lead from the suitcase, flip a couple switches, and be off to the races. And yeah, anybody got any thoughts, whatever on it, please let me know. I was going to say too, the other thing that would be handy about this is you can see I got hardwire set up in the Hobart at the moment, and then I got dual shield in the suitcase. That would be the other convenient thing about this, is that you could have, you know, the two different wires set up and ready to go, and be able to switch between the two at the flip of a couple switches and picking up a different MIG gun, which, you know, I think that'd be pretty slick. And just in case you wanted to, I figured I'd film it while I fuck around with this thing and weld around for a little bit. Change the wire speed here. I'm just curious to see if the fan will come on like normal on the Hobart. No fan yet. which I feel like the fan should have come on by now. A little bit worried, but okay. There's the fan. Yeah, I was kind of thinking there, I was like, oh shit, is this gonna work properly? But at the same time, I mean, the welder shouldn't know the difference between it welding on, like, the Hobart shouldn't know the difference between running off the Hobart's MIG gun and me robbing the power for a suitcase. Yeah, it shouldn't be any the wiser. As far as I know, anyways. But, yeah. For what it's worth, there you go. The other thing that I wanted to do while I was here and had both machines set up was measure the RPM of the drive rolls based on what the inches per minute on the front of the suitcase say. So for 100 inches a minute, we have 19 RPM, 200 inches, 38, so on, so on, so on, so on. What's interesting, 600 inches a minute gave 106 RPM, and 700 inches a minute gave 106 RPM. So kind of shitty that it won't actually do 700 inches a minute, but at the same time, I don't really have a need for that. But of course, you can see it's 19 RPM per 100 inches a minute, roughly. This is obviously not a super accurate thing, but I just wanted to get close because it drives me insane that this does not have wire feed speed or voltage on it. And so measuring that, I'm now gonna mark this out, and then I'll try to do the voltage as well too.